So now that we have kind of established the need for policy, the need for laws towards what are the different ways we can ensure implementation of policy, and then what may be possible barriers of it, we can now talk about advocacy. So advocacy is active effort to influence change. Right? So raising awareness about accessibility gaps, and this is something which I as an instructor and now you as an accessibility expert should also be aware of, that it is important to make other people aware about accessibility, about digital accessibility, about the requirements and needs of people with special requirements. So advocacy is raising awareness and bridging accessibility gaps, engaging different stakeholders and decision makers, and promoting inclusive policy reform. So telling people about the issues so that different stakeholders are able to get sensitized about it. Let us now discuss why advocacy is important. And for several decades, inclusion and accessibility was not part of human rights. It was not, guidelines were not in place, laws were not in place. RPWD Act was passed in 2016. And that has evolved through advocacy and pressure from individuals as well as organizations working towards advocacy for persons with disability. Users themselves have voiced their issues and demands to drive reform, and advocacy really bridges the lived experiences and regulations in a country, in an organization, anything. So what are the different ways we or our organization can engage in accessibility advocacy? So one is people do community-led initiatives, they do public awareness campaigns or workshops or conferences. Then there can be corporate engagement where people participate, have roundtable discussions, have workshops, etc., conferences, etc. And then there may be legal action, right, which is published publicly, and then people, kind of read those legal about those legal actions, and then they kind of try to adhere to the policy out of fear. So nowadays, social media has become a very, very powerful tool for advocacy, and digital advocacy is becoming very, very useful and in mobilizing bigger crowds and telling people about the issues, telling people about events which may be going on for advocacy. So social media is bringing in a lot of awareness. Accessibility audits are shared publicly on social media, which brings in a lot of understanding as well as compliance and regulation related knowledge. Open letters and petitions from users and from organizations who are supporting these causes. And then there can be inclusive design campaigns which can be mobilized and published on social media. So all of these methods are becoming very popular due to the large scale dissemination possible with very easy and low cost requirements to mobilize and inform people about it, make them aware about it. While it is definitely easy to kind of tell people about accessibility and the related issues through social media, it is also a very powerful tool for misleading organizations, countries, or people for that matter. So we have to be aware and conscious about the ethical dimensions of advocacy. So we have to be respectful in our representation. we have to avoid tokenism. We have to, center people. We have to put their voices in the center, who themselves are either beneficiary of inclusion laws or policy or products, or are people who are excluded due to laws or policies or products. So, and long-term systemic change happens over a long period of time. It doesn't happen very quickly. So, one of the major ethical dimension can be not to demand radical changes in one go. So, policy and advocacy both are kind of overlapping, and they both try to ensure independence. So, policy creates structure, advocacy drives that momentum, and both are necessary for a sustainable inclusion and sustainably inclusive society. So, in an accessibility ecosystem model, in a governance framework, governance is looking both at advocacy as well as policy. So, policy is able to set standards and legal expectations. Then institutional implementation happens, that okay, organizations operationalize through training and compliance based on that policy. Advocacy groups identify gaps and lived reality. So, after they have done it, there might be still gaps which are there in the products which are churned out of the organizations, and then they voice out demands, and they voice out those gaps, and then that results in policy reform. So, feedback loop that drives policy evolution. So, it's not that once the policy is made, it is just one thing and it will never be changed, and it is the word of the ultimate word or something like that. So, everything can have loopholes, it can have gaps, and that is where advocacy and the power of advocacy comes into picture, that it can drive policy reform, and that feedback loop kind of drives policy evolution. To understand all of these aspects, sensitization is the foundation of it all. So, what does sensitization mean is like building awareness and empathy, making people understand lived experiences, reduce unconscious biases, encourage inclusive thinking, and this sensitization has been the primary objective of this course. So, it is very important, and I think we have been able to do all of these through this course. We have been able to build awareness and empathy. We have been sharing lived experiences, not just through examples, but also through discussions, but also through invited guest discussion and all of those things. We have also tried to reduce unconscious bias through, again, examples, through frameworks, through thinking frameworks, and how to avoid falling into that trap of ability bias, etc. And we have proposed and we have shared frameworks and principles and processes of inclusive thinking. Why sensitization is critical in technology is that engineers actually influence access, and design decisions impact inclusion to a much big extent. And it has been seen that awareness improves design outcomes. So, if you have taken this course for these 12 weeks, you have studied the course, I am sure of it that you will be able to go back and work on whatever project, whatever problem you are faced with a much more inclusive mindset, and you will be able to develop products which are more accessible, and I'm sure you will also be capable to propagate and advocate for these ideas and frameworks to your organization and other peers in the team as well. Another important aspect is that technology dissemination has to be much wider in terms of accessible technologies. So we have to ensure that products which are good, which are accessible, which are inclusive, have to be widely available as much as possible. Training sessions and campaigns can be held to ensure stakeholders learn how to use it. Supporting adoption in organizations and reducing the digital divide is something which is of utmost importance, and that is something that can happen through strategic technology dissemination as well. So, coming to some of the common challenges in technology dissemination is maybe cost barriers, maybe infrastructural limitations, or lack of training, understanding, or resistance to change for organizations also can be a limitation, can cause limitation in technology dissemination. So one of the biggest example, I think, which we have discussed in one of the previous sessions in detail, is something where say there is a digital platform which is supposedly accessible to across language barriers. It is largely visual and it is able to interact. People with different levels of education can also interact with that application, right? So it is trying to bridge a certain divide, but whether that application is being disseminated at a large scale and whether people in the rural communities are able to interact with that application or not may depend a lot on infrastructure as well, whether the internet connectivity is there in that rural area or not, whether the smartphones that they are using are capable to handle the performance requirements of that application or not, whether electricity barriers are there in those regions or not, whether they are even able to charge their phones. So all of these are infrastructural barriers. So even if the solution is compliant, if it is it is able to follow your accessibility guidelines and all of that, the right dissemination, and there may be issues around dissemination which may also cause exclusion. So it is the design, the intent is meant to be for a much wider audience, but then because of these infrastructural barriers, they are unable to use it. So again, there is exclusion. So, or there may be resistance to change. They don't want to change how they do a certain thing. So that may be one of the reasons for lower adoption of certain new technologies. So, and then that is where this lack of training or adding training campaigns along with the new product is also very important. And there are a lot of such examples that you will be able to see, particularly for ground level innovations where the product is disseminated by the government, but the people are not willing to adopt those products, or if certain training campaigns happen, the adoption increases. So all of those things are very important. So the inclusive technology ecosystem requires policy support, it requires user feedback loop, it requires industry innovation, and it requires academic research contribution as well. Let us now come to, now that we have kind of summarized all of the aspects of policy advocacy and technology dissemination, which largely governs accessibility and digital accessibility and the compliance related and the different gaps surrounding it. Let us try to talk about some of the possible careers in accessibility. Throughout the course also, I have been telling you about possible careers, but I would like to take this opportunity to discuss some of the career options in this summarizing lecture. So accessibility auditor is something which we've seen that is very much in need and requirement. Now that policies and mandates are in place, a lot of organizations are looking for third party auditors, and you can be an external auditor. There are a lot of auditing companies, there are auditing organizations like Saralex or CABE and all of those, which hire a lot of accessibility auditors. Or if bigger organizations, they want to hire internal accessibility auditors, those kind of positions may also be available. But for being an accessibility auditor, all of these aspects of evaluation and compliance and WCAG and POUR, all of these aspects which we have discussed in the course, you should be an expert in that, and I'm sure after this course you have developed that mindset as well as that expertise which is going to take you to this position. Other possible career option which is there is an inclusive UX designer. We have spoken about in detail a lot of different aspects of user experience design pertaining to accessibility and how a good inclusive designer can ensure accessible designs. So you can position yourself as an inclusive UX designer also, and companies are looking for such designers who are able to understand compliance and still are able to deliver visually striking designs. So basically the designs are compliant, they are able to incorporate all of those multimodal interactive aspects as well, and they are able to follow the WCAG guidelines as well. But because of those compliance, the visual quality and the interactivity is not getting compromised. So that is where the niche lies in terms of an inclusive UX designer. Then you can also be a policy analyst. So as we discussed that policy may require reforms, or even for compliance, somebody has to study the scope and the applicability of that policy. So organizations, bigger organizations, they have policy analysts who are in internal posts, as well as there are policy analyzing organizations which are more legal organizations. So you can kind of partake in that but you have to again have the expertise of the same compliance guidelines and laws related to accessibility. You have to have an idea of WCAG, you have to have an idea of what an audit means and what audit entails. You have to have an idea of inclusive design thinking process in order to be a inclusive policy analyst. Then somebody can also become an assistive technology specialist. So you can innovate a specialized solution which is an assistive technology as well. If you have an understanding of the frameworks, the gaps, the challenges, the different ways how accessibility can be approached in a digital product, you can also be an assistive technology specialist. So you have to understand what are those gaps which are not being addressed by a blanket product, and then that is where to fill that specific unfilled gap, you can propose assistive technologies for to fill those gaps. Other than that, other various roles can be in the industry. It can be accessibility testers, compliance managers, inclusive product development engineers, corporate social responsibility related positions which are there because they review projects and they approve grants for inclusive design academic projects or research projects. So all of these internal positions may also, knowledge of accessibility will benefit you to fill those positions. Also you can add this course in your resume and kind of apply for these internal positions as well. Similarly, for government officials and public sector, so there are several roles people who would like to apply. So policy drafting and review, there can be standards enforcement related people. So there's, as I said, there is a commissioner, then there is an office of the commissioner of enforcement, so there is associated staff as well. So these are the different positions which people who are aware and knowledgeable about compliance and accessibility guidelines can fill those positions. Then of course public procurement compliance related bodies and digital governance related bodies, all of those. Then there can be research and academia related roles. So you can go into inclusive HCI research, because accessibility is a very strong vertical of interaction design. You can go into assistive technology innovation. You can be a person or a researcher who develops standards, or you can go into curriculum design also and propose courses and develop courses and teach courses on accessibility and digital accessibility and all of these frameworks that we have spoken about. So of course all of these positions would require the similar understanding of accessibility. So understanding the standards, the guidelines, understanding testing skills which are more technical. Then there can be user-centered design, frameworks related knowledge, and of course your ethical awareness about accessibility and policy for accessibility. So make sure that you acquire these. Some of these, three of these of course we have talked about in depth in this course. Ethical awareness also we have been talking about in this course, and while we can talk about ethical awareness, but that is something that one has to acquire a little bit on their own as well. And I am sure in order to build these skills for a possible accessibility related career, this course has been useful for you. It has been helpful in making you sensitive towards accessibility requirements in product development and new product design. So what can be the future of accessibility? One is of course with students like you going into the field and implementing their knowledge about digital accessibility. It is definitely in good hands, and now with AI and emerging technologies, it is looking bright as ever, and there are a lot of possibilities, as we have discussed in some of the sessions in detail. There are a lot of possibilities in global policy frameworks. There is a lot of possibilities which are now showing in terms of inclusive innovation frameworks, because the sensitivity towards accessibility as well as policies and mandates are strengthening around accessibility in the recent times. And now accessibility is considered as a mainstream practice. So it is very important that that you have gathered this knowledge, you also propagate it, and you also please propose it to your peers to take this course as well in the next rerun. And I'm sure it is going to be amazing with people like yourself who are now aware and sensitive towards accessibility, and now you will develop solutions which are more inclusive in nature. So I'm very grateful, and I would like to thank you for taking this course and indulging in the course. and I hope you have gained a lot of experience and knowledge related to digital accessibility, which you will use in your work, in your professional life, in your career, in your resume, in making the world a better place. Thank you for joining this course. I will see you soon.